Thank you all for joining us tonight. Joint workshop between the city and the county. Tonight, I've asked Commissioner Richardson to open us up on the communications please.
Our Father, we thank you for your love. We know you must love us because you put up with us. Lord, we do a lot of things that we probably shouldn't. We say a lot of things that we probably shouldn't. But we thank you for your grace and your mercy. We thank you for your salvation. We thank you for the ability to be here, to take care of business, to be able to work together as a county and a city, to be able to grow our community. Lord, provide jobs for the people and an economic boom for our businesses. We pray that you would guide our discussion. Lord, that you'd give us wisdom in how to respond. And Lord, help us to have a course set out, to know that we are working together as a team to be able to do best for our citizens. Lord, we do pray for our men and women in the fire and EMS, especially in the Sheriff's Department, especially as they have a busy day today, Lord, Police Department. We pray that you would bless them and keep them safe. We pray for our men and women in blue around the country, Lord, that you would take care of them and our military as well. Lord, just provide. Bless according to your will, forgiving us of our sins, we pray. In Jesus' name, for his sake. Amen. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pretty much the items that came back from y'all were the same as ours. So the three items that we have are pretty consistent with what everybody was looking to discuss. I've got here, Mr. Thomas, if do you have anything you want to start with, or would you like to go straight?
I'd just like to let everyone know that our mayor is unable to come tonight because he's kind of under the weather. He desires your prayers. Please remember him. Okay. And Councilman Yuli just arrived. Thank you.
All right.
And at this time, Mr. Chairman, we'll just listen to what, you'll have to write on the table.
Okay. Well, item number one on the agenda is what we have is economic development, which is kind of been a hot topic for a little while. But one of the first things I wanted to really talk about on it was a few meetings back, y'all redid the analytical agreement that we had, a joint resolution on the funding. And that was within y'all's means to do the joint resolution that we had, said that the city could from time to time look at the resolution and decide whether or not the funding was appropriate or not appropriate. I guess the point, what we're asking them is, I have heard from a couple of council members that they may be revisiting it, may not be, but our budget time is fastly approaching. We're putting stuff together for the budget. We just want to make sure, ask that y'all have that number nailed down for us, so that going into the budget workshops, we know what we're looking at. And if any of y'all feel free to jump in and fill me out at any time. Along that lines of that, does anyone have anything they want to add? That was my primary concern on it.
Mr. Chair, if I may, when we're talking about economic development, when we hired Dr. Jackson, during that process, I went to a couple of commissioners, city council, excuse me, and I stated that when you utilize our economic director, I asked that you would help with the share cost of doing this. And if we're going to work together as a city and the county, I felt the right thing was to make an approach. In doing so, I talked to Thomas and talked to the past chair, the late Keith Nixon, and went down to his office. We reached that agreement, and it worked fine. And then I started hearing the rumbles about some things, and I don't feel like that, and I was part of the process. I don't feel like if the economic director working, because he worked for the county and the city, and if he doesn't do anything for the city, if we take on this by ourselves, if jobs were to come into the city, that means that the city would basically be left out. Because I think if we work hand in hand, then we can get some things accomplished. But if the city don't feel as if they're getting their bang for the buck, then there's a problem, and that's why we're having this workshop, that we can come down, we like Bob said, come down, let us reason together, let us reason, let's do the right thing, let's do what we're supposed to do in order to get things accomplished. Because if we work dividedly, we're going to fail, we're all going to fail. And as businesses want to come into the county, you don't have no economic director. We got the economic director. And you can't utilize him, because I did say that you won't be able to utilize him if you're not paying half of the salary. So I just want to pass along if some of the other commissioners have anything to say to that.
Just a minute. Fleming, I'm going to let the city manager, will you please address that?
Just a comment. I won't go back specifically, Mr. President, but just to make the point, we the city, speaking on behalf of the council, continue to be very supportive of economic development. Always want to be part of that program. And I think your action exhibits that we wanted to redefine the relationship, and I think we've done so in a manner that I believe that works for both of us.
Okay, Councilman, you lead.
One of the things that we talked about in that meeting that put together some type of outline for him to go by in the city of London. We want to know what he's doing and how he's helping the city. That's one of the things that we talked about.
So you feel like that he's not helping the city?
Well, I think that he's trying real hard to help the city, but he don't have anything to really agenda to go by.
And to back that up, I would like to see, every month, I'd like to see a report. This is what I've done, this is what we intend to do. Let's give us outline on what's being done, and what's trying to be done.
I think some of the problem has just been communication. Even when he took over TDC and we're paying half of his salary, nobody contacted us at all. So I had 3 residents ask me, what's going on there? I addressed that to the city manager, and he doesn't even know. Well, are we taking half his time away, and nobody's addressed it, that topic? Now, how am I supposed to tell residents who are concerned about that? Because we don't have the communication of what he's doing. And I know he's doing a great job. You can just look around and see he's doing a great job. I mean, but to say that we're not paying and we don't care about economic development is ridiculous also. I mean, because we do. I mean, it's a win-win for everybody. So it's very, very important to the city, and I'm not speaking for, for everybody else, but I know that it's very, very important to the city. If we bring in businesses, it helps this, it helps the community. But when you change the job and we're paying for half of his salary, and I can't even tell 3 residents what's going on there because I don't have the information, there's a communication problem.
I agree with you. We probably dropped the ball on that when we did change the economic development at TDC. Because we put it under economic development. Where I think we probably lacked informing y'all was that what our intentions were to actually hire an employee that would handle the TDC. So,
and if you do any kind of job description and you put a detailed time for work and what he's doing, I mean that's how you do job descriptions. So if we don't have any kind of detail, then all of a sudden the scope of his work is changed. And then I can't even explain to my residents what he's doing. I mean, I can't even go to my guy and get information. Right. And that's a problem.
yes, sir.
Mr. Council.
I agree. It's maybe like you said, a lack of communication, but I think the accountability is there. I mean, I know that as a commissioner, I can reach out to him at any time and ask him any question. I don't know if you guys do that or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, he's very, very accommodating, no doubt.
Yeah, that's good.
Like I
That was
said,
my
he's doing a
question.
great job.
Yeah.
But we have to be able to be informed. I mean, employee, employer.
Sure.
If we're spending that money, and people know how much we're spending, we have to address that. They want to know, okay, if they're taking his time into that, what does that mean for the city? And if I can't answer that, I mean, what am I here for? That's why I'm here. There's no argument that he's doing a great job.
I just want to make sure
He's
that
definitely
it's on your half, the accountability is there, and that line of communication is there. Because you mentioned that, I just want to make sure you guys, all of you, have that, because I feel like
Yeah,
our board
he's
does.
very sensitive. There's no doubt.
And I think the solution to the problem, just give us an outline of every month. This is what I'm doing, and this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And I think that's where the communication gaps come together.
The extra duties, he's actually been probably relieved of duties by the takeover of the TDC.
Yeah, but we didn't know that.
I know, because it enabled us to hire a full-time position to go in there as a staff assistant at TDC, staff assistant. That is where he was the only one in there. So it's increased the output from his office.
Mr. Gamble. I recall when that came up, Mr. Fleming, and I thought the concept of the economic development director is a great idea, and I think we need that. I wasn't 100% behind half the salary. I felt like it should be more based on the per capita because of the city of Monroe having less population, that sort of thing. So I think reasonable men can disagree on that, not be disagreeable. Part of the problem, I think, is it's like you got 2 cooks in the kitchen. You got 2 bosses. I think the attempt at this resolution that we passed was to change that dynamic there where he has one boss, which would be the county commission, and we would be making a contribution to the county commission for economic development purposes. Obviously, you could use that and would use that for his salary, but that would really be up to you. I think that was the purpose of it. That way, he really answers to you. We're making contributions. There should be some built in, I think, as Mr. Thomas says, some kind of accountability because we're all making a contribution. What that is, I don't know, but I think we could work something out, or staff would work something out and really resolve that issue. Those are my thoughts.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead.
Economic development's a lot like sales. And in sales, people have to get a lot of leads, a lot of contacts. And I think that Dr. Jackson is by far got the most leads in this room of anybody. You can go to Tallahassee and you can't go down the hallway of either the Senate or the House without people coming up and talking to him and discussing things. They all know him. He's helped us get a lot of things done in the county, and he's, I'm sure, helped the city too, recently with grants and things like that. So it's hard to quantify what he will be doing as setting up an outline and having a monthly report, because a lot of times when he deals with outside entities that come to this county looking to build a business, to buy property and things like that, it has to be held in total confidence with him. So he can't really even tell us who he's working with until people are prepared to buy a piece of land and say, look, we're here to build this business or whatever. So he has to be a very self-motivated person to get this done, and we have to kind of give him a chance to work undirected. And like I said again, it's very hard to quantify what he does and to have an outline like you're asking about, because the contacts that he makes and the people he continues to call and get back with is what's building us, building up our reputation within the state. We are on the map now. Suwannee County is on the map. You know, Live Oak and Suwannee County. And we all together worked over a year ago about the Amtrak thing. And that helped get us, you know, kind of out there too. And it still hasn't died yet. But it's going to be real hard, I think, to show a performance or monthly performance, because so many things he does is confidential with big customers that come to this county.
I don't think it's a performance thing. We're wanting information to know what's going on. It's not a performance.
Well, I mean,
It's just being involved in knowing what he's doing.
Well, like I said, when you want an outline and you produce this outline, and then let's say he talked to the Grimm company from California about carrots. Well, before they got here, we couldn't say anything about that.
Sure.
But so I talked to a company about something. I mean, that's all you're going to get sometimes.
Yeah, but you can.
You can't even say about carrots because people wouldn't know who you're talking to. So there's just a lot of things, and I don't know his business as well as he does, but I know that there's some certain things that he has to do that really has to be held in confidence. It's kind of hard for us to put on paper, or for y'all to even, for him to put on paper for you. That's about all I know on that.
What I'm hearing though is basically you just want to be kept in the loop.
Absolutely, that's it. And even when we were voting on this, we sent emails
Yeah.
to the county of our intentions and never got responses. We never got responses
Sent to who?
to the county.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. Just curious, I was just asking Dr. Jackson about this. You know, our staff comes in and does reports on a regular basis and provides those reports to us. To me, it would seem like that would be an easy way for you guys to be able to get at least a regular report, may not be monthly or something like that, just have them come in and provide that during while you are receiving chambers to provide that information to you, or you don't have to get it separately or in a written state.
He doesn't even have, I would think that he'd have to give it to us. I just think he has to give it to the city manager, and then
What
we
do is a
do
quarterly
that.
staff report, basically. We do that for our department.
Excuse me.
A quarterly staff report is what we have.
Quarterly staff report. Yeah, I mean,
If we can get that to our city manager, and then he can
yeah.
inform us accordingly. It doesn't have to be, we don't want to get him definitely don't want to get him bogged down and do an extra report. That's not what we want him to do. That's not what we're asking.
Yeah, but ours
Like you said, we
are
just wanna be able to
typically at
what's
our board
The
meetings.
scope of work and what's kind of going on. They inform the city manager that we can go forward with that.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make a brief comment. The comment about not getting a response back, I received an email from the city manager regarding a draft of what the city was considering. And it had a blank in there regarding a proposed contribution from the city. And because on our side, I'm not a policymaker, I put it on the agenda for the commissioners to try to respond to that. Now, we then pulled it because I think it was the council president that talked to Commissioner Fleming about that. And we pulled it off of our agenda. Well, it wasn't long thereafter that it finally was considered by the city council, and then we were on the receiving end of the finished document. So there was no desire on our part
Was
to...
it confusing of what he was asking, or no?
No, it wasn't confusing.
Did
It's
you
just that
contact him?
we put it on the agenda.
Just put it on the agenda?
Yeah, public agenda. Everybody, you see our agenda.
Yes.
And before the board considered it that evening, it was pulled off of our agenda. By time.
I'm seeing a communication problem. That's I'm trying to get to the point where it's a communication problem.
Well, I'm going to help clear some of that up.
That's it.
Give me a second. Let me finish. And I'm going to help clear up a few things. A few things that were in that proposal regarding what I will call, for lack of better terms, a report that the city was requesting from Dr. Jackson, were things that clearly he could not comply with, such as the introduction of any company that came in and spoke to him, introducing him, delivering those people back to the city because of this very confidential issue of confidentiality. So clearly that couldn't be done. And there were some other things in there as well. I don't remember now the specific details on it. But there wasn't any desire on the part of either myself or the county commission to not respond to that thing. Like I said, it was on the agenda. The council president talked to Commissioner Fleming about pulling it. We pulled it off of our agenda. And within a couple of weeks, the city council acted on it, and then we received a copy of it thereafter. And that's really how that played out.
Communication problem. Communication.
Mr. Chairman, as I said earlier, I think we're talking about the same thing. But it's a communication problem. We're not connecting the dots. And I think when we do it quarterly, Dr. Jackson come before the commission, he let the commissioners know what's going on. And when he comes to the city council meetings, likewise, if he was on that agenda, he could, in reference of giving it to the city manager, everybody would know. This is what he does. He don't give it to county administrator, he let the board of county commissioners know. And that's how we operate.
Do you see any, maybe Mr. Harris or could answer this, do you see any situation where the economic development director, and we're not talking about Dr. Jackson, we all agree that he's doing a great job, we're just talking about the position of the person, where he might be in a conflict, have a conflict of interest in some cases between the county and the city, representing the county and or the city? Would there be any situation that you could see?
I don't have any reason to believe that that would be the case. And I only say that because, and I don't mind telling you, he probably deals with 20 companies and I get introduced to one of them. And that's just the way that it is. You know, I talk to him sometime and he'll allude to some type of business that he's working with. I have no idea who they are. When he's prepared to introduce me to someone, he does that. If it's something that I can participate in to help out. But no, I think the types of businesses that he's introduced me to are typically those that would need to maybe locate in the county instead of the city for some obvious reasons. Maybe they need a large rural piece of property to develop on that just simply wouldn't fit in the city anyway. And I don't know what types of customers he's dealing with that would, have a need to be located in the city. You know, maybe some that need immediate utilities, and you've got that in a very location where they need it or something of that nature.
And I see that's on the agenda for later, and that would be where I'm headed. You had mentioned that about a grant, which I think was a great thing out on 136 and I-75. Is it possible that though something like that might create a problem or competition with the city those kinds of things.
Again, I don't.
And
I don't
those are the kinds of things we'd have to work out. I'm just
If you took the last 2 or 3 businesses that located in the city, restaurants, fast food restaurants, it's unlikely they want to go locate in a rural part of the county somewhere. So I would say no, probably not. Or, you know, a retail outlet that wants to be closer to the more densely populated part of our area, they're going to want to locate in the city versus a rural location somewhere. So I think that there are businesses out there that are going to be more inclined to be attracted to the city than in the county, and vice versa, for some obvious reasons. Now, the interchange out there, you know, that's certainly going to be a prime location for a fast food restaurant that wants to pick up the I-75 traffic. So it's possible that a fast food restaurant could locate in either the city or the county. I don't see a conflict. I think it's, you know, those companies, those franchises have their own criteria that they're following, distances between other locations, things of that nature. So that would have less to do with all of us sitting in here right now than it would with their own criteria that they have to comply with.
I think the main conflict that he's referring to from a conversation we've had earlier is that applying for the grant for the city, or the utilities north of the city, was basically direct competition with the city. But Dr. Jackson, Mr. Harris, they weren't acting on behalf of themselves.
Well, you see what I'm saying? I mean, I think
that was the direction of the board.
Sure.
To apply for that.
And
they were just fulfilling the orders of the board.
Sure, and I mean, you can see where we represent the city. I mean, we have our responsibility, you have yours, and we have to carry them out faithfully. And you know, we have a wastewater treatment plant there that's got plenty of capacity. So there's where I would hope we could work out some things and work together. I know I've jumped down to number 2, I think, and
They're all basically
didn't intend to do it, but I think it's all kind of.
I think it's all related.
And at least my preference would be with Dr. Jackson or whomever is in the economic development director position, is if he is under the board of county commissioners, I don't have a problem with that. If we make a contribution toward development, economic development, as I think that resolution was attempting to do, and us not get into telling your employee or whatever, however you want to characterize it, what to do, how to do, but I do think some kind of accountability is good. Those are things I think that can be worked out between staff and bring back to us. That would just be my personal opinion.
I didn't. My main question on this whole issue with the resolution is just basically the funding side of it. When does our number need to be turned in for the budget?
Early summer, we start putting our budget.
Right now, I'm assuming the number's going to stay the same, and that's pretty much where we're going from there. We just need to definitely know if it's going to stay the same. There's been a little bit of talk of changing it. If it was going to change, we need to know that prior to budget. And that's just been with individual council members that I've had that conversation with about it maybe changing. The other thing is, I agree, probably where our biggest error was on both council and the board is just communication. So I think from anything on this issue, that we just need to start working better on our lines of communication. The other thing, something else I wanted to talk to on economic development was something that we did a while back, and there may be some things that we can do to enhance it and just get y'all's feedback on where y'all are on it. But we streamlined our permitting process a few years back to try to get people that want to come in and start a business through the permitting process within 90 days, if possible. Do y'all know, and not to put you on the spot, but kind of what y'all's timeline is on getting somebody through the permitting process or the application process if they come in to start a new business?
Mr. Chairman, I think it depends on a number of factors. Type of business, obviously, location, you know, whether it's a new facility, whether something has to be built, whether it's an old facility. You know, I think there are a number of variables. we certainly applaud the county for expediting that. We want to do the same thing.
And
Hardworking.
I'm not bringing it up to point out a deficiency. We're working together, and we don't need to compete against each other. And time is money when you're in the business world, and we need to get them in and out of there as fast as we can, both our office and y'all's office.
I'm happy to direct staff to take a look at what you're doing. If there's something that we think that's the best practice that we can do to expedite efforts, we obviously will do that. I just can't pull a number out because of the many factors involved.
And I realize it's 90 up to 120 days, but I mean, we try to shoot to have it done as fast as possible. And some of the things, we've talked about it in the past where we've gone through and picked out the target industries we want and went ahead and changed the zoning in those areas to meet that target industry so that they didn't have to come in, apply for a building permit, and then zoning changes and everything else. Now, certainly there's some places in the county where they are still going to have to come in and do a zoning change if they don't go into one of the areas that we've already identified. But, and I understand that our areas are different than y'all's areas, and the things we have to look at are different than what y'all look at. But the quicker we can make them for them as a whole, I think the better we are. The last thing really I had to touch on economic development, I passed out to each one of y'all the National League of Cities paperwork that says 10 things that the city says are very important that elected officials should know about economic development in order to be effective leaders. A lot of this is spot on, and it's very broad, but I think it's something that both of us, the board and the council, should take a good look at and consider adopting it as part of our mission statement, I guess, or as part of our goals to enhance economic development. But it's simple things for identifying your strengths and weaknesses in economic development, your community's place in the broader region for the economy, your community's economic development visions and goals, your community's strategy to obtain those goals, connections between economic development and those city policies, county policies, your regulatory environment, your local economic development stakeholders and the partners, the need for local business in the community, and your community's economic development message, and your community's economic development staff. And then each one has a little paragraph that goes on to describe more of what it means. But I think this is a good step point for both the city and the county to maybe take a good look at the goals of League of Cities has set out and try to answer those questions. Not today, but I mean, each one of us should sit down and take a look at it and kind of decide where we want to go as far as the city and with the county with economic development. And I know I put that on y'all today, but if y'all have had a chance to look at it, are there any thoughts or feedback from that? I just ask that y'all take a look at it. Our board will definitely be taking a look at it. Yes, sir.
I'm hoping we're going to get some feedback from the meeting the other night with the consultant that was there, and the business people, and look at particulars.
Yes, sir.
For us,
I just
city side.
In doing a little bit of research, they're simple questions, but sometimes the simple questions are the hardest ones to answer. And I think that'll give us a good footing on how to make a plan on where to go. And the League of Cities has put a lot of effort and hard work into coming up with those questions. Does anyone else have anything else economic development related that they would like to add? I do have one public request to speak, and since we're on economic development, if they would like to speak now, I'll grant them that opportunity. Mr. Tillman, do you? Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to touch on one thing. When the discussion of conflict of interest came up, many times when businesses come to the county or the city, they pretty well know where they want to be. So I don't think Dr. Jackson's going to guide them to the county. He's going to just guide them here to just set up shop somewhere within the confines of this entire county. So I don't think there'll be something out there where he's pushing them to go to the county and not to the city. And if they do go to the county, the city always benefits with the residual effect of business in town when a new business comes to the county. People are coming to Live Oak to, buy insurance, get tags, eat lunch, and all those things. So the city's going to always get some type of residual return when somebody does come to the county.
Yes, sir. I agree with Mr. Sessions. I don't think that's what I heard though from Mr. Frank. I think more of your concern was not necessarily is he going to pull the business that way, but you were leaning more towards the utility side of the competition. And I agree with what Mr. Harris said. The types of businesses that would be interested in I-75 is not going to be located downtown Live Oak. So I don't think his time would be one way or another.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think, and again, I've jumped down to number 3, I think. Is that okay? For example, if we have capacity with the wastewater treatment plant, and it's impossible to provide, and I'm not clear 100%, I don't know what the legalities are, the logistics of number 3, discuss the county becoming a bulk rate customer. I don't know all the details of that. I'm sure somebody can work that out, but my concern would be if we've got the capacity and we have the ability to provide those kinds of utilities, and if you go and have a grant and then provide it, and it would seem to be advantageous to everybody. You could utilize what we have. We could utilize more of our capacity. They say actually it even runs better with higher capacity. So I think it'd be beneficial to both of us.
Let me remind the council, the question like this, I think, should be addressed back to the city manager. I don't have a problem sitting here listening and taking notes and then take it back to the city manager. He's responsible for the day-to-day operation of this city. And I think these questions need to be answered through him. Okay, thank you.
Well, I believe that the city manager as well as the county administrator is a big piece to the puzzle. I think with the policy side of it, the direction that we're going needs to be left up to the 5 of y'all and the 5 of us. And so that's what we were elected to do, is to make those decisions.
I'm sorry. But for example, that as an example, that could be beneficial to the city and the county, and of course the city is in the county. And those are the kinds of things that I'd like to see us try to work on, where not that we're competing, but there are things that we compete, obviously. We have different interests, and there will always be some conflict between the various governments. And
I agree with you. That's maybe where the discussion needs to start between those two guys, and they can bring back to each one of the boards, and we can get together collectively and work together on those things. I agree with that. I don't have an issue with that at all.
I would hate to see the county do something that wasn't necessary when we could meet a need, if we can work out the details. And, we may not be able to, that's possible, but if we can, let's give it a try and work together. I think that's what the people would want us to do.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you, Councilman Davis. I appreciate that. I almost called you Brother Frank. But I think if we can do something that's easier, we're going to take the easiest route. There's going to be places where we can work together in those situations, and there's going to be places where we probably need to go it alone, because this is going to be a lot easier for the businesses, a lot easier for the grants, a lot easier for everything. And instead of, I may be presumptive, and forgive me if I come across as presumptive, but I think we need to instead of wondering who's taking our opportunities away from us, and are they taking our opportunities? Are they leaving us with any opportunities? We just need to figure out how to work together. And you're right, it's about communication. But communication works on this side, also has to work on that side. Not just us communicating to each other, but y'all communicating and us communicating together so that we all know what's going on. And we don't depend, we depend a lot on Mr. Harris, we do, as well as y'all depend upon Mr. Williams. But he knows what his place is. We know what our place is, and I think that's what works well together. We make the policy, he makes it happen. So, and he brings us a lot of recommendations. I don't want to step too far out in this, but working together is probably, we're going to have to forge ahead. We're going to have to build bridges. We're going to have to probably tear down some old bridges, and we're going to have to build new ones, better ones, so that everyone is everyone, whether they're in the city or the county, they are benefiting from it. That's what we're elected to do.
Yeah, and I agree, but at the same token, I think, it should be run through our city manager and your county administrator. And then, my city manager, he's a feedback to us, and your city administrator feedback to you all.
But that feedback goes both ways. You also can give it to the city manager and you to them. In my opinion, economic development in Suwannee County helps Live Oak just as much as it helps Suwannee County. There may be tax issues and this type of stuff, but people at Clausner come to my restaurant. They buy insurance from me. They buy tires from Eric. They, where else are they going to go? One thing that I was just thinking as you were talking, each one of us lives in one of your districts. Maybe we should call our county commissioner every now and then and say, hey, look here. And if that's a violation, we'll get our wives to call. But, the communication here is as important as communication over there. If we don't know what's going on, we can't make a good decision.
Well, I would just go ahead and tell you, the city councilman who lives in District 3 does call me a lot and communicate, quite frankly. Complains about a lot of stuff. I do have a list that Dr. Jackson and I put together. It's just 7 questions that if y'all get the chance in a council meeting to maybe go over them and try to answer them. It's simple stuff, just, in the city, what does economic development look like? What would you consider to be, what would the council to consider success to look like? So that we kind of understand as the county what y'all's vision is and where y'all want to go, so that we know that we're trying to work together to get you to where you're going. And there's just 7 questions that are along those same lines. I don't have to need to answer them tonight, but y'all maybe take a, sir?
And just to add to that, Mr. Chairman, I know we talk about what Dr. Jackson does on a day-in, day-out basis, and then, like they said, there's many things we don't know what he does, but I know he puts many hours in, sometimes weeks and months, and the deals fall through, and you don't see any glory off of that, none of us do. So it doesn't mean he's not working, I can assure you, but not all things pan out for the good, but there's a lot of hard work there.
All right. Let's go on to item number 2 on the agenda to discuss the city's schedule for replacing the failing utility lines that are impacting county roads. I know we've talked about it in the past. I mentioned it at one of y'all's council meetings that I was at, that when we started applying for grants for different roads within the city. And as we're awarded those grants and we start repairing the asphalt on these roads, that we're probably going to implement an asphalt replacement standard. That way when you do have to make repairs to the utility lines underneath it. We're making sure that the roads are being brought back up to the same standard or a better standard than what was taken up. So that, and I know we've all seen it, and it's not on y'all. It's been there 20 years, some of them, where the asphalt is sank down around the manhole covers, or the patches are 6 inches lower than the rest of the road. But one of the big things we wanted to talk about was a schedule. I know we're applying for the grants. We don't know when we're going to get them, but the last thing we want to do is wait to get them to start working on the infrastructure. And just to use a road as an example, I think since the last time we were at y'all's meeting and talked about it, we were awarded a grant for 136. But we wound up starting at the interstate and coming back because I don't think the utilities that some of the failures underneath that road have been improved. So I don't know if y'all have a replacement schedule or not, but maybe y'all could kind of advise us on where you are with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment. And as you'll recall, Mr. Harris, Mr. Thomas, you and I met on a number of issues, had a very productive session, I thought. And we talked a little bit about that. And I know that the county your administrator talks to me all the time about it. We certainly plan to coordinate our efforts there. As I said to you in that meeting, the city looks forward to the time that your schedule allows you, and I do know it's not definite at this point, as Mr. Harris has indicated, but we look forward to the time that you're prepared to do that, and we certainly will be prepared to do the work that we need to do. There are many needs, as we all know, but those particular streets, I've asked our staff to put together a list of all county jurisdictional roads in the city. We have a list that obviously we will try to see if this can work with what you had, what you know to be, so that we know exactly what those are. But the main ones we know that have difficulty. So my point is to our council, and I know I've shared it with Mr. Chairman, but we clearly will continue to budget infrastructure dollars along the way in order that we're able to be in step with the county on those roads when you do plan to resurface them. The community obviously wants it, deserves it, and again, talk with the kumbaya that's going on here in terms of working together. We think that's a great opportunity to do so.
Yeah, the only concern I have was I didn't want y'all's, or I hope y'all's replacement schedule is not contingent upon our schedule, because we may apply for it and they may tell us no today, and we may 3 months down the road they may say, yeah, we decided to approve it, because that just happened to us on a road in the county. So I mean, you don't know when they're going to come back and say, oh, we changed our mind, found some extra funding, we're going to go ahead and push this road through.
And that's why we think we'll be ready. That's why we're preparing ahead. What we have to do, and all great public works folks will tell you, the two have to come together. We certainly don't want you to be ahead on the paving, and we certainly don't want to be ahead on the infrastructure improvement, because either one does not work well, as you can imagine.
Anyone have anything they want to add to that, Sheriff? Oh, sorry.
I was going to forward that to Mr. Harris, if we could have you been contacted about a schedule on these roads.
Not on?
Yeah.
You hear me now? Yeah. John, you'll be okay. I'll tell you about it later. I don't want to belabor this issue, but what our chairman shared with you is very real. I mean, we had been applying for a road to be reconstructed, and we had been told no. And then out of the blue, we receive a notice the other day and they say, we're going to go reconstruct this road, or we're going to construct this road for you. That really happens. I had asked our chairman to place this question on the agenda. My hope is that the city can go ahead and create an actual calendar, rather than wait to find out when DOT approves the road for us. For this reason, we have these very narrow opportunities to make these requests. And if, like what just happened, DOT notifies us and says, we're prepared to send you the money to reconstruct Duval or 136 from 129 all the way back out to where you're ending on the east end, that section that where we're starting at I-75. If that happened 90 days from now, would the city be prepared and have the money to rip out all of your failing lines and replace them to accommodate that construction? Now that could be a real question. I could call you in 90 days and ask that question. So that's how serious it is to us. Because if the answer were to be no, then I would have to tell DOT, no, we aren't prepared. And then that money goes away. We don't have the luxury of asking DOT to reassign those dollars in this county. They've already told us on other occasions they won't do that, and they don't. Because we've had plenty of opportunities and we've made those requests. So that's how serious it is to me, and that's why I'm appealing to you to try to go ahead and create the calendar. We know about Duval 136. We also know about Elton. We spoke about that earlier.
Well, at this time, I think the city manager, he's prepared to answer that. Sure. And I don't think he'd have a problem answering that.
Go ahead. I just want to raise
Well, that's all I really wanted to emphasize. The necessity for I think our battery died.
Well, let me comment while you get your battery back. You and I talked about this, I think the four of us talked about this, and at that time you thought it was 3 to 5 years. Obviously, you don't know that for sure because you're applying for grant. Again, if we know you're applying for grants, obviously that calls for an adjustment in our schedule. If we don't know it, we can't make that adjustment. But we believe that our infrastructure program is such that we can respond rather quickly, whether it's 90 days, 60 days, or the original schedule that you and I talked about, 3 to 5 years. It's again an issue that you and I just need to keep fresh. I did not know that you'd applied for a grant at DOT, but we both know how that happens. You apply and you hope you get it, and if you do, you get it. That's better. If you don't, you apply again. So, yeah, we'll talk to you about putting a schedule together based on that application. As we all know, we can't do it in reverse. We don't want to fix the lines, and we don't want to fix the lines, and you're not ready to pave, because that calls for something not good called repaving. But we'll talk about that schedule for sure.
Well, okay, I'll just go ahead and tell you, I do have an outstanding grant application on 136, the entire project.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I'm so glad to know it.
Yes, if I get that call tomorrow or 90 days from now, I'm hoping the city is prepared. And I know it's an enormous financial burden. It requires a lot of funding. It will require a lot of funding. And my hope is that the city is prepared to take that on when it occurs. But it really would be helpful to me if that happens.
We will be. Just give us as much notice as you can in order we can coordinate the schedules. Thank you.
And on that road, I mean, that's a real possibility that they can come anytime and say that we're going to approve it because of what's going on I-75 and 136, and the fresh pavement that we're putting down is only coming back a certain amount. The Department of DEO and DOT, they work pretty good together. So as much as attention as they're giving that interchange out there, it wouldn't surprise me in the next year, 2 years, maybe 3 years that they pop up and say, hey, we want to do it all the way back.
I think, Mr. President, we were, during our last meeting, we heard 3 to 5 years at that point. But whatever, as that schedule advances, we'll advance our schedule for sure.
Yeah, we prepared.
Anyone else have anything on the infrastructure and the repair? Moving on to item 3. This is the one Mr. Davis could wait to get to, so we'll let you have the floor on it. Discuss the county becoming a bulk rate customer of the city utilities. We've already touched on it a little bit, but for me, this is probably the biggest part of the discussion tonight. When we started economic development almost 4 years ago, people have different visions of what economic development is. The biggest thing people want to look at and say, what's you brought? What business is here? How many jobs did you get? But when you start with nothing, you don't jump out there and start grabbing businesses and grabbing jobs. You have to start off and build your pyramid. You start with the foundation. The foundation of economic development is your infrastructure. And I think the quickest way for us to get to where we want to be is become a bulk rate customer. But there's questions y'all have, there's questions that we have about it. I've got some of my questions wrote down, but I'll open the floor up to anybody that wants to start it, or if anybody's got any questions.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. My question really goes back to number 2 as well, and it's closely tied to number 2. Big concern of mine would be becoming a bulk rate customer, and then in the future, there not be funding enough to repair the damages, repair the problems, to expand, and you get to capacity, and you're not going to be able to continue to take care of our needs as we are growing. Top of that, does that make sense? I've learned one thing is you don't build a 2-story house on a 1-story foundation. If you have a failing foundation, you don't get bigger. You fix your foundation, or you start all over again. And I see a lot of the problems in Live Oak as I drive through. Though this is not my district, but I spend a lot of time in Live Oak. And when we get a brand new paved state road straight through the middle of town, and then all of a sudden, within 6 months, you're digging up a big old massive hole out here. That's concerning me. That's concerning to me, because if we are going to become a bulk rate customer, we're going to need to depend upon a large amount of infrastructure to be able to expand. Maybe small at first, but growing. And we're hoping that it would be growing. But what happens? Do you have the money to fix your problems? That's the question. Do you have the money to fix your problems, Mr. Williams? All of your problems with infrastructure.
And I think it's a great idea. Just a matter of, going to the drawing board and let's try to figure it out.
But the question is still there. Do you have the money to fix all of the problems that the city has with infrastructure?
But it's the same thing going back to the county. Does the county have enough money to fix everything that is going on in the county? It's a two-way street. You guys are getting a grant for your. You don't have the money either. You're getting a grant too.
Yeah,
right. To answer,
you're absolutely right.
I think
we are
the
getting a
answer-
grant, but we don't run an infrastructure business at this point. We're not a utility business.
I think the answer to your question, though, lies with the engineers and the professionals that will make that assessment. I think they would be able to tell you if, one, there's capacity, which I'm convinced there is, and then whatever would be purchased would be on new lines, I'm assuming. It wouldn't be from any old lines that we have in the city. So I think that would be similar to, you mentioned the 2-story house. If you had a professional inspector, he could tell you if that foundation was properly laid, if he's got the plans and so on. That would be my answer.
The overall shape of the utility, I don't think, and I'm not, this isn't my industry, so I'm not sure, but I wouldn't think would have a huge impact on us. It may have some. The concern is the capacity and the life of the actual sewer plant, because the lines running through residential neighborhoods aren't going to affect what we're wanting to do.
right.
or I wouldn't think that.
But there's a principle still involved that I believe that there's a reason why you don't fix those lines. You alluded to it a little while ago, and that is if you fix lines, you got to pave roads. But as much as Live Oak's fixing lines, they're not paving roads. You're not paving roads, so it still happen. And I mean, it's an aging infrastructure is what it is. So that's where I get into why shouldn't we just go ahead and put in a request for grants and build more sewage and water. I mean, why shouldn't we? And just depend on ourselves.
Again, I think it's going back to what we discussed earlier, being mutually beneficial, cooperating with each other. I'm sure there are provisions that can be made for maintenance. There'd be some kind of contractual arrangement. There'd be funds set aside that would be escrowed for maintenance. I'm sure that those kinds of details can be worked out. But it would be a shame to me that if we're sitting out there with 48% capacity or 50 or whatever, and never reach, and I don't know, depending on what hooks up to it, how much capacity they would use, but engineers can answer those questions. I think you would have a comfort level there would have to meet, and I believe that it could be done.
And understand those are questions for me. There's not a comfort level or a discomfort level. I don't know, and obviously we need to know it. But if I turn this question around and simply say this, becoming a bulk rate customer, would it put enough pressure on your systems to where your city residents who are dealing with those failing lines become more at risk for more problems? They don't have a right. That's a question I think is valid, at least need to answer for.
You know, I think that's the question for city manager. You know, you answer that. You deal with this every day.
I think we're well ahead of ourselves here a bit. I think there's a lot of discussion that needs to go into if this is a fit for either one of us. We can consider that. Clearly, the city has the capacity, but you know, your number of issues relating to condition thereof, et cetera, et cetera. There's a long ways to go with the engineering and analysis before we talk about bulk rate relationship or any relationship, because I think that the city at this point, has a system that works very well. We have aging lines, but in terms of its ability to provide utility, we do a great job, and we've got an outstanding operator. So, Mr. Chairman has mentioned this on a number of occasions, and I think that clearly the City Council is open to hearing the county's thoughts about being a part of that system. But there's miles to go before we get to any determination, I believe, from the technical folks that's been advising me, before we're able to make any determination about whether or not this works for either the city or the county in a best practice mode. So we certainly want to hear what the county's thoughts are, but I don't know that any of that analysis has been done.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, sir. I think the question is, can the city, I don't want to say can afford, but can the city have that capacity to run services throughout the whole county?
Yes.
Throughout the whole county, when there's issues within the city. And some things I don't want to go into.
And I don't think it's hard, but for me, and what I think we really need to get back on the track of is not what they can or can't handle right now, but the fact that you have any interest in us becoming a customer. If you don't have an interest, everything else that we're talking about is irrelevant. Several years back, the county established a utility service area, which is basically everything outside the city limits, so they're not servicing everything outside the town of Brantford that they're not servicing. I believe, Weldon, is that correct? I know, I'm saying we have established a service area outside of that. And over the last 6 years, we've been very active in establishing utilities within that service area. We have a water plant at 90 and 10, and we have an active grant application for a sewage plant at 90 and 10. We've been in contact with the governor's office, with DEP. Matter of fact, I believe we even have a conference call with DEP tomorrow on that site. So there's activity going on in our service area. We've established a service area already. I got a grant application, active grant application for 129 and I-10. And everybody knows about I-75 and 136. We're in the middle of constructing the sewer and water there. So we're in the utility business. It's not whether or not we want to be in the business. The county is now in the utility business. I have a strong desire to partner with y'all as a utility partner. I think it's a smart move for both of us. It gives y'all a paying customer. It gives us quicker access to the utilities that's going to bring the businesses to the community. But I will tell you this, and I don't want it to come across as a threat, because I don't mean it that way. But if y'all are not interested, we are fully prepared to just go it alone. It's just going to take us longer. And the benefit for everybody is to get there as fast as we can, I believe. So I hope that y'all are actively considering becoming a partner.
Just to echo what he's saying, it's not a competition with you guys. It's just we have a very motivated board right now. We have a motivated economic director, and we have momentum, and we just want to keep it going. I mean, that's our goal. That's what we were hired to do. And if you guys are wanting to participate, let us become a bulk purchaser of that. We're all on board for that. But that's something you guys get to decide. And as he spoke, we're moving forward. So again, not a threat. We're just motivated. We want to keep moving. So.
Well, it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Plus the taxpayers. We don't have a problem. Just come to the drawing board. Let's sit down and work it out and move forward.
Y'all, right now, y'all have the capacity, I believe. I believe y'all are about 50% capacity. We've got the areas to run it to. It's already, we have utility service areas that need it. One of the things that I wanted to discuss, though, is as far as the economic development, what our plans are within the community or within the county, is that where those lines come into the county, we want them to be county lines. So we're going to put them down, run them through our right-of-ways, get them to where they need to go. And y'all are going to be the facilitator of the utilities, and we're going to pay you a favored nation rate. And for me, the benefit to the city is you have very low exposure and overhead. You've already got the capacity. Most people that I've talked to about utilities, and if you're running under 75%, it's more costly. So if you can up your capacity and not really reduce or increase your overhead, your revenue streams are going up. And I think that's a positive thing for some of Mr. Richardson's concerns about failing infrastructure within the city. You reduce your exposure. What's the city? 5 square miles, 10 square miles, or whatever the size of it is. You reduce your exposure just to where you're at, and not taking it 15, 20 miles out into the county like we're going to do. We'll bear that burden. Anybody feel free to run in. I'm running out of stuff.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say something.
Go ahead.
In the last 3 years, the reason we started at I-75 and 136 on our own with infrastructure is because every time a possible customer or business would want to locate out there, they would ask either me or anybody on the board or Dr. Jackson, well, is there a place to plug into, meaning sewer and water? And every time we tell them no, and every time they say, well, call us when you have it ready to go. A good example of what's going on out there right now, the McDonald's has way more business than their septic tanks can handle. They get pumped out sometimes twice a week. They would be an immediate customer to us when we go out there. But the biggest issue is the reason we pushed hard for these grants out there is because we knew we had to do something if we're going to capture that economic ability to get those 82 million people a year to go down I-75. Right now, we're not doing anything to capture it. So as each business has come to us, they say, if you finally get some infrastructure out there, we're liable to come back. That's the hotel industry, the fast food industry. There's people that are interested in the farmer's market, all types of industries. But every single time when we told them we don't have infrastructure, they said, well, we'll have to look somewhere else right now. And we lost one to Georgia here recently. So that's our concern. But we have some momentum, but we're trying to create our momentum right now. So that's why we're so worried about infrastructure at this point.
We'll just lay it on the desk of the city manager, and he'll pass it down to us, and we'll do what we need to do.
Well, I would like for, yes, go ahead. Well, what I was going to ask tonight was to hopefully get some direction from the council and the board. We're interested. I believe I speak for all five of us that we want to become a customer. But that takes y'all saying that y'all are going to take a customer. I know we can't make a decision tonight because it's a workshop. But if y'all agreed that you would like to discuss it in a formal manner and are willing to take us on as a customer, I mean, we would like something in writing within 30 days that we're not hashing out all the details, because I understand that there's going to be a lot of details, but at least something that says that, yes, we're willing to move forward with this, because we really need to know what direction we're going to go in. Right now, we're going full steam ahead on the grants. The governor approved another $85 million of the Florida Job Growth Grant this year. We were very successful with that last year. We got a good relationship with DEO, Sissy Proctor, which is the director of DEO, and right now we're looking at full speed. Hopefully we get another $3 million from them again this year. But it would be so much better to put that $3 million towards lines that we can run out into the community rather than building another sewer treatment plant somewhere. So we need a direction that we can go in so that we can get on board and move. And that's what I would ask y'all tonight, to kind of give us some feedback. Do y'all think y'all want to start moving in that direction? And let's...
We did it. Should have been done a long time already. You know, it's just a matter of city manager and this council coming together and do what we need to do. I mean, there's nothing impossible. City manager?
Yeah. Just comments, President. The staff has worked on, and I believe we shared it briefly with Mr. Chairman and Mr. Harris, a business plan that we think, and of course the council has a copy of it, that we think can provide at least a framework for these kinds of discussions. And we look forward to, of course, going into detail with the council, but the county administrator and I and our staffs obviously need to spend a bit of time together working through things. But the council will make the policy decision, and we'll provide the technical input to see if it makes sense for all of us. All right, but I do know, to echo Mr. President, we certainly are very interested in working with the county if it makes sense. I mean, there are a number of considerations, but the legal issues.
I understand there's going to be legal issues. There's going to be agreements, and I mean, I don't mean to sound harsh or hard, but I mean, there's certain things that as far as me, I'm only 20% of the board that I'm not going to reel in on, and that's some of the stuff that we have to work out. But I mean, we know y'all can do it. We've seen your plans. I mean, pretty much I believe everybody here knows that y'all are actively pursuing a agreement with Pilgrims to bring their affluent back to, we've been in conversations with DEP and Tallahassee about that right now. And that kind of concerns me that it's into our service area and we haven't been brought into that conversation through the city. We were brought into that through DEP. that y'all have actively become a third option that they have. Because that is extending out into a service area that we have established, that we have water in, and that we have an active grant application in for a sewer plant. So that's kind of along the lines of we need to know what your plans are.
Let me clarify that. Let me clarify that, Mr. Chairman. We have advised you of those discussions going back several weeks, if not much longer. Clearly, we've talked about it. It's part of that plan that I shared with you.
Well, I've seen the plan, but the plan shows that you're going to I-75, 136, Spirit of Suwannee, and Pilgrims. But the
prior to you seeing that plan, we've had discussions with the county on this.
Okay, well, as chairman, I've been left out of those conversations. If y'all have had conversations. I know where this is going.
Let me just say this. I received a comment regarding Pilgrims one day. Now, I didn't know about those plans that you had until we met 3 weeks ago to talk about a workshop. That's the first time I saw those, and I didn't know anything about the music park and those lines or anything else. I actually had a phone call from Water Management District when I was applying for the grant for I-75, indicating that someone from the city had contacted DEP and asked that we not be awarded that grant because the city could provide the service. So I'll say this, if I could. I've always been accused of being a summary version kind of guy. Works well for me. And I don't mind sitting here all night. But there are some fundamentals. You know, we can talk about the complexities of agreements. But those really kind of fade away in a hurry if you can't agree on the fundamentals. I had suggested to our board members that we try to come up with a bulk rate agreement because my board has instructed me to get busy and build a plant, a water plant, a sewer plant on the north side of I-10 on 129 and to build a sewer plant on US 90 West. That's what I've been instructed to do. So I'm working in that direction right now. But I suggested to the commissioners if we can come up with a bulk rate deal with the city, that might serve both parties well. And I really believe that. But let me speak to the fundamentals for a second. Because if the city council directs the city manager and myself to try to work some details out, we might as well go ahead and address some of the more difficult ones so no one's choking on them later. And it might save all of us some time. One thing that's important is the county would have to own all of those transmission lines outside the city limits for the service to be utilized by the county. The city would not own those lines. You would simply be a provider of capacity. Now, if that works, we move to some of the other issues that I know are important to the city that we have never had to deal with. And it's something that you would have to deal with. In the city, when you've got a customer that doesn't want to annex in, and we briefly commented on this in the meeting recently, you have a payment in lieu of taxes. Traditionally, in the state of Florida and other states, municipalities try to use their utility as an umbilical cord to reach out there and draw new businesses into the city limits so that they can generate the additional ad valorem tax revenue. So they go beyond simply generating revenue from the sale of the utility services. They also generate ad valorem tax revenue. And in a more recent case, and this is common as well, the city of Live Oak came up with this payment in lieu of taxes for those that did not want to annex but agreed to go ahead and hook up to your utility. The county commission doesn't have any plans that they've communicated regarding paying any of that. And that's one thing the city's going to have to discuss. And then the other thing was what the chairman mentioned a moment ago, that the county would anticipate as a bulk rate customer of utilities, the lowest taxable rate that you're charging any customer within the city limits. So those are just some of the fundamentals. If the city council and the city manager can work through those issues and and get back with us soon. All of the other legal stuff is easy. Those legal agreements are really nothing. But those are the things that I see as choking points, typically, when these things are discussed in any other location of the state. But if the city council has a desire, and I'm really excited about that, I believe that the commissioners are as well, that's really exciting to us. It does save time, and it generates revenue for the city. And I don't mind saying, and I've said this before, it's really important to the county that the city of Live Oak flourish and prosper. It's really important to us. I've got grave concerns with the failing infrastructure right now in the city. But I'm hopeful that even if it takes the additional revenue that can be generated by the county being a customer, that additional revenue will help you take care of this failing infrastructure. It's important to all of us. It's important to everyone in this room. In any event, I would ask that you try to address, when y'all go back to your meeting, try to address some of those key issues. And if we can get beyond some of those things, then maybe we can move more quickly toward answering the question of whether or not the city is interested in the county being a bulk-rate customer.
And I agree with you, Mr. Harris. You know, and it's nothing that cannot be done. It's just a matter of, like I both said, coming together and getting it done. That is no problem. Not with the city, not that I can see. So when you say build a treatment plant, you're talking dollars. You got to cross every T and dot every I. It's not easy.
We have to build one right now. And I don't, if we don't have to build another one, that would be awesome. That'd pay for a lot of lives. And that'd give y'all a good paying customer. It's going to bring jobs to Suwannee County. It's going to help all of us flourish.
We have one brother retired with us. It's just about coming to the drawing board, working it out. Just that simple.
That's what we want to do. And I'm getting the sense that, I mean, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but I'm getting the sense that it pretty much looks like y'all be kind of somewhat in agreement to us, maybe possibly becoming a customer? Or no?
We've got to talk.
Yeah, we can't get it in.
I know, I'm just trying to get some feedback. I mean, y'all willing to discuss it, at least let us know someone maybe 30 days.
Look at all the details.
Right.
Yeah.
I would hope that it could work.
Yeah.
I would hope so, yeah. But I would
It's not, that's what I'm saying, it's nothing impossible. It's just a matter of getting together, working it out. Just that simple.
You know, when the prison came in, they didn't have any problem running those lines all the way up.
All the way, that's right.
You know, they got that done. That was before me and you were
Yeah.
around. But I mean,
Yeah.
they were
Exactly.
more than capable of doing those things that needed to be done. So.
Yeah. We sat down to the drawing board, put it together, did what we had to do, and they satisfied and we are.
I just think we need to communicate. Mr. Harris, Mr. Williams need to communicate and get on the same page.
Exactly.
My biggest concerns, and I know, I'm an exercise physiologist. I don't run a city. I won a popularity contest, and that's why I'm here. So I rely on people who have the credentials and the expertise to give us, information, and then we kind of take that information and make the right decision, hopefully. But we rely on our city manager. We have to. He's got experience. He's got the credentials, and that's why we hire somebody like him. So, I mean, do we want that to work out with the county? Absolutely. It makes no sense not to. But we have to get with.
Completely understand.
I mean, I can't sit there and say, yeah.
I'm not asking you to say yes, that you absolutely 100% can, because we don't know that. What I just was asking you is, do you have the will to try?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think we've always had. I just think a lot of times we get into.
Well, I can't say because it's about, 5 or 6 years ago, we had a workshop like this that was in a building over there, and it wasn't no, but it was hell no when we asked the question. So, I mean, that's why we went forward with moving to these treatment plants, because it wasn't going to happen 6 years ago. So just the fact that you're willing to have this conversation.
There's a big difference from 6 years ago.
Oh, yes, yes. And that's why we're having this conversation now, because I
We need
think
to.
the council and
We
the
do.
boards have recognized where we need to go to get to where we want to be as far as growth and jobs.
But I think Mr. Harris eloquently described the fundamentals there, the issues. There's 3 big ones, and I'm interested in finding out how. So I don't know, as most of us don't, the details, how it would work, but I think he's spot on with those 3
The
issues.
3 big issues that are related for us, I'll have Mr. Harris email it to each one of y'all, Mr. Williams, and y'all take time over the next 30 days to look and see if you can live with it or what we can do, and let's figure something out. One thing I don't want to happen is I don't want to kick the can down the road and procrastinate on it. Let's get it done yesterday.
Okay, we can,
Mr. Williams,
we get together and call a workshop, you know, sit down and discuss it.
It's like the chairman's optimism about the schedule there. He continues to remind us of. I think the council has spoken. We'll get there.
I just say it because motivation gets things done quicker. I know how government can work sometimes. If it's not really high on the list, it takes 6 months, 8 months or something that should have took 15 days. So I just don't want it to get put on the back burner. I don't think it will, but I'm very optimistic that Mr. Williams can get it done quick for us.
Thank you, sir.
You just keep calling meetings, keep calling it. It won't get in the back burner. We keep meeting, we're working on it.
Do y'all have anything else? I mean, Mr. Harris, do y'all have anything you want to add to that?
Okay, appreciate you inviting me.
No problem. Now let's just,
We look forward to moving forward.
good thing. At this time, if anyone from the public would like to speak, I'm opening the floor up for some comments. I have one comment card, he has stepped to the floor. Name and address for the record, sir.
Bruce Tillman.
Louder, can hear
Bruce Tillman, 7219 37th Road. I just wanted to applaud you guys for coming together. I think this is the first step, first huge step, and I do thank you. I did want to have some comments. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. Leadership has its challenges. For you, it's more than winning an election. It's more than winning a popularity contest or getting a paycheck for your service, which we all do appreciate, or being the man in charge. It's more of what you are in charge of, which are many. A few of those you're in charge of several hundreds of families and their livelihood, the community's existence, in the city and the county, and future existence. In a way, you're in charge of the small businessman's ability to succeed or grow. You're in charge of presenting a chance for a person or business to give their child the opportunity to be better and to improve themselves more than they were. It's developing a leadership and a staff that puts others first. As leaders of the city and county, we have to make decisions that are many. Well, they need to be well thought out, planned. Sometimes they're not popular, but they definitely need to be future-minded. Growth and development of our local economy faces challenges. It could be these two councils working as a team, develop plans and goals, and maybe having this meeting at least once a year. I've already heard that from somebody else when I walked in the door today. It could be putting aside the saying that we've never done that way before. The financial challenges that we have are definitely prevalent. And we've talked many times, utilities, sewage, job growth, revenue. Maybe it's removing obstacles, a bottleneck. It could be in the LDRs, could be in the processes you have, could be in the permitting you have, could be impact fees, whatever the case may be. There's a book I read, name was The Principle of the Path. Man, it was so good, I turned around and read it twice. So I recommend that to you. But in it, the author spells out that you are where you are because of the path you've been on and the decisions that were made along the way. A failed relationship, a failed business model, or a city and county crisis, all are a result of past choices. Today, we have a per capita income that's $8,000 to $12,000 lower than the state average. Our poverty level in Live Oak is at 33% versus 16% on the state level. 46% of our residents are on food stamps. And we have many, many lost opportunities in the last 20 years that could have been a difference maker for this community, this city, and all of our citizens. And many of that was due to lack of planning. Some of it was due to kicking the can down the road. And you guys, I just want to challenge you to work together, work through these differences. Don't fear change, okay? I think there's been a lot of issues in the past where there's been a fear of change, fear of turf, whatever the case it may be. And I've only been here in my life for 20 years, and I appreciate Live Oak, I appreciate Suwannee County, and it's been good to me, and I feel blessed. These challenges are more as a result of these choices that were either made by city and county commissioners of past decades. This past Suwannee County is on has positive and negatives. Like I said, I'm blessed to be here. The last thing I'll say comes from a proverb. We're actually many times in the Bible we're asked to pray for wisdom. Wisdom to operate in our own relationships with each other, with our Lord, our careers, our family. If you as community leaders, we only ask you that you will look and see down the road what the horizon is for our community. It's not just the stuff in your face, okay? What's it going to mean to this community 10, 20, 50 years from now? Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak, and should make your way to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Tom Daniels, 1100 South Ohio Avenue, Live Oak, Florida. I would like to thank the commission and the council for coming together. You opened it up with having a problem about communication. Now you've opened the door. Unlike Bruce, I don't want to see this once a year. I'd like to see this once a quarter. There's a city election coming up. Some faces may change over there. There's a county election coming up. Some faces may change over there. And I think you guys need to stay in touch and do this a little bit more often.
Thanks, sir.
Good evening. My name is Anita Williams. I live at 4242 Don Luis in Los Angeles, California, but my mom lives on Miller Street. I just first of all want to say thank you both city and county so much for this. I've been gone from Live Oak for 40 years, something like that, and I was very impressed at the numbers and conversation that I heard tonight on things that have happened in Live Oak. If I can go back to the economic development, I don't have to get answers tonight. I just had some questions on some questions that came up. On the first one, I think Mr. Davis asked about
it being a donation versus half county, half city. And I was just wondering if you would think about how that would work because of Mr. Jackson, if per se a huge project came into the city and you're just doing donations, would he have the time to give to that project that would bring revenue to the city instead of having the half-half? I know it may be problematic to have two bosses, and you guys are talking about making, there's some give and take, so maybe there could be some decision on who would be, that he could report to one person, and then, like you talked about, they give updates without breaking the confidentiality on that. The second question was, when they talked about competition and not wanting to compete, for Dr. Jackson having to compete, so my thoughts were the city and the county have in a perfect world, we would like these businesses to come to Live Oak. So Dr. Jackson has already, from the city and the county, what kind of businesses he's targeting for the city and the county, which should kind of get us away from worrying about competition. And I think, I'm not sure if there should be a worry so much about competition, because what's good for the county is good for the city if it brings business, and vice versa. The other thing I think I mentioned to Dr. Jackson is for the city, or do we use the diamonds we have that have left Live Oak and gone on to live in other places that are very successful to do social media or commercials or ads or promote Live Oak in other countries? I know there's some people I know in LA that go back to where they're from and do things pro bono to promote their communities. We have amazing athletes that come out of LA. I was talking to somebody, there's a guy from here that's a sports commentator, I think in Ohio, and you have Miss Owen's son somewhere. I think those would be revenue boosters that you wouldn't even have to pay for if you could use those diamonds that have left and sprouted and gone everywhere. I was, just a short story, I was looking at buying a house in an area in LA, and about, I think October, the realtor, my email is SuwanneeNeat@Yahoo. So the realtor called me in October, and she said, are you from Suwannee County? And I said, yes, I am. And she said, I got back and I was going to send you an email, and I wanted to let you know I was in Suwannee County. And I said, from LA? And she said, yes. And I said, how did you end up in Suwannee County? And she said, well, I listened to all kinds of music, and you had something called Spook something. That Hulu. And she flew from LA into Jacksonville, rented an SUV, and stayed a week at that event. And I was thinking, I said, did you come into Live Oak? And she said, no. She usually does a tent, but this time she didn't want to put it up and break it down, so she rented like an XL Yukon and stayed the week in her SUV. So when she told me that, I was just thinking, how do we promote that in the county, but pushes people into, I was like, hell, if I knew people would come here from LA, I'll advertise for you guys. I didn't even know it was such a thing. So that just makes me proud to know, Live Oak is doing things that people are coming. I was getting a massage down in Merritt Island. When I told the girl where I was from, she says she goes to that other thing at the Suwannee Park every year. I have a friend that plays for the Braves. He said his brother and all of them from Sarasota come up here. So you guys, I just want to compliment you. You're doing a great job. If we could just make it bigger, and that's where we work together and let people that come to the county build that up, and then send those people also into the city. If we could get people to come in the city to spend money, because we have a beautiful downtown, and everything I do in LA is named after Live Oak or Suwannee County. You cannot believe the phone calls I got that Live Oak was on TV when the flood came. That the downtown Live Oak was, so we're on the map in a lot of places, and I think if we can get away from a thought about competition and see how we could do some synergistic things together, it would help a lot. And the last question was, are you offering to work soon with Live Oak to get a more streamlined business process up and going? Because I've been working with people in the community, talking to different people, business owners and voters on issues that they have in the city. I don't know much about the county. And I think that would be a really good thing, because they're having a lot of issues. And the last thing I'd like to say that was very important, and I like I think it's Mr. Harris that says he likes to get to the fundamentals, because that hadn't been mentioned earlier, and I think those three things that he mentioned are very important for the city manager, who I think is going to kind of lead the talk on that with the engineers, so you know right off the bat, are those three things you can deal with, that you won't own the lines once they leave the county, they won't be paying the ad valorem tax, and there was something else. Oh, and you want the lowest possible rate that you're paying the people in the city. So I think when the city council goes back, those are the first three things you should settle right off the bat, because you can't go anywhere before you get a triple yes on those. And again, before I leave, I'd just like to say I'm looking forward to moving back to Live Oak. I am very impressed at the things that I see. I can say I work with getting my city councilman elected and going to meetings and fighting in LA, but my head is spinning today from this conversation. I really thank you guys, because at this meeting I've learned more about things that are happening and the growth of Live Oak and in Live Oak than any meeting I've been since I've been coming back and forth. So thank you guys.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Hearing none. Council members, I put a spot on here for each one of you. If y'all have any comments, you'd like to add to it, closing comments.
Commissioner Young, I'd like to see us in 60 days come back to the drawing board.
All right, let's schedule that. We can make that happen. Anything else? No, Commissioner Lloyd.
I'll really like us to continue to work together and put this in a big package for all of us, city and county.
Absolutely.
And the only way we can do it by coming back together to the drawing board. Councilor Birch.
I'd like to say thank you to the citizens for coming tonight. Thank the county commissioners and staff, the city and staff. And I really want to commend Commissioner Chairman Gamble. I know he's worked real hard to bring this together, and I think he showed excellent leadership. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Allen?
Good. Manager, city attorney.
Don't give me a problem. Okay.
want to say thank you, guys. I appreciate this. It's encouraging, and like Mr. Tillman said, and Councilman Birch, I think it's been a communication problem, but I think we're all willing to fix that. This is probably one of the most encouraging meetings I've been at. It really is. I appreciate all of you, all the staff, including our staff as well, and the community for being here. And I just look forward to what we can do, what we can accomplish together. Absolutely. Mr. Fleming?
I would like to thank the chairman. I'd like to thank county and city for working together tonight to come to one common goal, and that's to make the city, county, a better place to live. I have, as I was again looking over at the city council, we have 3 councilmen within District 2, live within District 2, so we have to work together. I think we have reached out and helped in some capacity in 2, 1, and 5. The county did some work. You asked, and we did it. And I would like to say that we would love to continue doing that, and that's the only way we can get some things done. With me living within in the city of Live Oak, and I ride around Live Oak, as Commissioner Richardson said, he lived down in the Bradford area, but he'd be up every day. I live in the city, and I see some things that we possibly can work together to try to get some things done. I will be available at your call. All you gotta do is ask me. I don't have a problem with it.
I'd just like to thank everybody also for coming out tonight. In my life and my experience, there's been 2 things that I always consider when I look at things in front of me. Obstacles always create opportunities, and in the pursuit of excellence, there's no finish line. You have to continue to strive to get better every day. If you're complacent, you'll go backwards.
When I ran for commissioner down in the South End, there's a lot of talk about how Branford doesn't get along with the county, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I looked at the relationship between the county and the city of Live Oak, and I thought, man, that's a pretty good one. And then I became county commissioner and learned that nothing's perfect. No relationship's perfect. But I found one little nugget that I hung on to, and I believed in wholeheartedly. And Councilman Burke, you said the same thing, and that's what I want to echo from the commission as well as you and your council, and that is that when we sit down and talk and communicate, there's no problem that can't be overcome. There's no relationship that can't be rebuilt. And we have a responsibility to the citizens to be able to work together. And I've been able to, thankfully, through the help of the commission and help of the council down in Branford, to build that relationship back again. And I think we can strengthen ours here in Live Oak. Thank you.
I'll just close with this one thing. We talked earlier tonight about competition, the city and the county competing against each other. And in the economic environment that we're in, we can't afford that, because every day we're competing with every single state, every county in the state of Florida and South Georgia. And you can pick up Florida Trend or any of the economic development magazines, and the same stuff that we're spending thousands of dollars doing a year, these other counties are doing. So the biggest thing that we have to offer anybody is the atmosphere. We can offer everybody the same thing the other counties do, but we have to create an atmosphere that they want to be here. So I just want to leave you with that we are in a competition, but it's not against each other. It's with everybody that's around us. And to beat them, we're going to have to work together. We're going to have to create that environment that people come and say, I want to be in Live Oak, I want to be in Suwannee County, I want to be in Brantford. It's not a competition of they got to come here, they got to go there. They just need to locate within this little circle of the Suwannee River that we love called Suwannee County. With that said, if there's nothing else from anyone, I appreciate y'all coming out, and I appreciate the audience coming out and attending, and the ones that spoke. Y'all have a good evening, and I look forward to hearing from y'all in 30 days on this issue.